Thank you. Welcome back from lunch. We, both of us, were discussing it will be a difficult act to pull it off, yeah? To keep
Very
you
true.
all awake and engaged into this very important and very interesting bits of conversations that we will have, yeah?
Absolutely.
So, Raj, yeah?
Oh, go ahead.
Very warm welcome.
Money is better.
Money.
We're talking about money.
Yeah, I mean, that makes it even more pleasing. Um, there are three themes that we will engage in conversation and more for the audience over here. The first thing is all about, digital payments, transactions. It's not about something recommending a movie, and if you don't like the recommendation, it's okay, right? There's no harm done.
Absolutely.
You'll be a little disappointed. But this is real money. This is serious things. So we'll talk about that in the first theme. The second theme we will also touch upon is about security and the consumer experience around it, the UX, the experience angle to that. Yeah? Where do you draw the line, and how do you do things? The third theme will be, it's AI, it's data, it's people data, it is, and hence ethics around it. Yeah?
Sure.
And if time permitting, we will go into your thoughts around future trends, human in this mix, right? And some of those areas. Okay?
Sure.
All
Sounds
right.
good.
So to tee off on the first theme, India, digital, we all know that India is leading even on the UPI transactions and then the infrastructure around it, showing the path to the global consumers as well. So in all of this mix, and it's a very rapidly evolving area, right? In all of these things, what is your outlook on this dynamic interplay that is happening? Yeah? Would you mind to share some of your thoughts?
No, sure. No, let me start off by telling you that it's an absolute pleasure to be here. I came in early and I was walking around and looking in at some of the other sessions, and I must say it has been fantastic content and even more impressive speakers. So I think it's a brilliant session, brilliant program organized by Cypher. So kudos to the organizing team. Now the question at hand, right? Digital payments and India. I think this is one of the most talked about stories across the world today. Earlier this year I was in New York, and everybody wanted to talk about UPI.
Wow.
Right? What is UPI? How is it that you're growing so rapidly? And in fact, last month I was in Sydney for a regulator meeting, and again this topic came up. What has India done that it's leapfrogged? And when we talk about leapfrogging, let's look at this in perspective. Let's look at some numbers, right? If I were to annualize this number, and this year, at an annualized rate, India digital payments will hit about 150 billion transactions.
Wow.
That's 150 billion, right? And let's put this in perspective, guys. We are living in a world that has 8 billion people. And India digital transactions for the year is 150 billion. That tells you what we've done, what we've achieved in terms of scale. And this number has been growing by about 50%, give or take, over the last 5 years, year on year. So this tells you what's the runway like. And now with the advent of things like AI and other emerging technologies, right, this is going to further accelerate. And there are sources that believe that this industry, which is digital payments itself, will hit about $10 trillion in India alone by 2026.
Massive.
Yeah, that's a substantial number. That is scale. Now that is India, and if I were to borrow from our prime ministers, this is true made in India, right? The backbone has been UPI. So of this 150 billion, if I were to cull out the UPI numbers, that's about 120, 130 billion would be pure UPI numbers. So that's a significant contribution that we've made to the world. Now let's look at how technologies like AI are contributing to digital payments itself. Now there are many ways in which one can look at this, but I'll talk about 4 key things around AI and payments itself, and how it's accelerating the growth of digital payments in India. The first one is around identification, detection, and prevention of fraud. Right? So across the board, AI engines, AI models are at play to ensure your payment transactions are safe and secure. Not only does it help detect fraudulent transactions, but in many cases, it's proactive and it prevents these transactions. And what this does is downstream, it helps save a lot of money for the merchants and for all the players in the ecosystem, thereby helping save costs and therefore making transactions cheaper for the end consumer. So if you see what AI is doing, everything it does centers around the consumer. Now the second thing where AI has a major play is around streamlining transaction processing. Now, those of you who've been in the banking space or in payments will realize transaction processing is an extremely cumbersome process. A lot of manual work, a lot of reconciliation, which means it is cost heavy, which also means it's time consuming. Now with the advent of AI, what has happened is most of the processing companies, the issuing banks, have been able to automate their workflows and their processes, thereby cutting down on costs, which again works in the favor of the consumer. Now third one has a direct bearing on the consumer. What AI does rather, is it helps personalize the experience for the consumer. And let me explain this to you. In fact, many of you would have probably gone through this experience. When you shop at a particular merchant category, let's say you are shopping for, let's say, perfumes, accessories, you suddenly figure out the next time you're browsing, you get pop-ups which say, hey, listen, are you interested in this?
Yep.
Right? This is, again, people who are looking at your purchase behavior, who are looking at your past history, and giving you ideas saying, okay, are you interested in having this product? Thereby, it helps drive loyalty engines. Right? All of them get created around AI. And the fourth one is more predictive. Like I told you, one is we use historical data to help you with loyalty. The other one is around futuristic behavioral prediction. Now, how will a particular consumer behave, a particular consumer class behave? And how this helps is, it helps banks and fintechs create products that are tailored to these behaviors.
Fascinating. And yes, with a lot of data, almost real time, right? Multitude of sources that you need to look into,
Yep.
To figure out what is the personalized experience and what we need to do. And again, not to undermine the play of algorithmic interventions at every step and automation, right? That's the magic that makes it happen.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely true.
Very, very powerful set of forces coming together. But then that begs the question, there is fraud prevention, there is data which is yours and mine, people hear the consumer data. Hence, there is an angle of heightened security measures that needs to happen. I'm sure, you all are looking into it in a very minute way. But also the other aspect of it is the CX, the customer experience. Now, how do you mix these two? Where do you draw the line, and where do you keep things separate? I'm sure everybody is wandering around it. Okay, my data, yes, I get some personalized recommendations, I feel happy about it, but hey, are these things getting mixed up, or there are some, checks and balances?
No, interesting question, Soumendra. And I really wish I had a simple answer to this one. So let me try lightening the mood on this one. It's about striking the right balance, right, between ensuring their security and the customer, the CX, UX. So it's very easy to say, strike the right balance. I'm sure all of you saw the match between India and Australia
Oh, yeah.
last Sunday.
World Cup?
Yep, absolutely. Chennai happens to be my hometown as well. And when India went into bat, Rohit Sharma first over, then Ishan Kishan comes out to bat. Second ball he flashes, right? And everybody says, guys, come on, you should have held back the balance. He thought he was doing the right thing, but we kept saying, oh man, what is this? You should have held on. And you and I were discussing this earlier today, right?
Yeah.
Look at the pitch, gauge the pitch, get a sense, watch the ball in the first over. So it's very easy to sit on the sidelines and make a comment about striking the right balance. Because in my mind, and this is my personal opinion, that these two are not exclusive. Right? Then I think they are intertwined, and I'll tell you why. I think security angles actually add to the consumer experience. I mean, imagine you didn't have security, a person loses his money, and what's the point of a consumer experience, right? He's lost his money, right? So your security angles, the security experience needs to be inbuilt into the overall consumer experience, which is where I think powerful concepts like explainable AI come into play. And let me try demystifying this word, right? Because a lot of people think AI is a black box. Put something in, something comes out, I have no idea how that happens. And I think it's incumbent on people who are in this field to demystify this. And I'm a big advocate of explainable AI. Explainable AI is very simple. It's all about explaining the rationale behind the outcome that's generated by the AI. And let me try illustrating this with an example. And I'm sure a lot of you have probably gone through this as well in your individual lives. Many a time, you shop at using a particular device on a particular website, right? Has it happened that when you change your device on the same website, you have to add an additional layer of authentication?
Oh, yes.
And typically, you also get a pop-up that tells you, hey, Soumen, we see that you're logging in from a new device. Is it really you? Do you want to authenticate? Now, in my mind, this does two things, right? One is it helps reinforce trust. Soumen thinks, okay, somebody out there who's checking in on me, who's making sure I am not being defrauded. What then that does is it ensures that you start increasing your transaction velocity in that particular website. So to me, because we are telling you that, hey, listen, I'm adding this additional layer of security because I want to safeguard your transaction. That to me is explainable AI. And this can be implemented across every possible transaction that creates friction according to the consumer. So that's what I mean by striking the right balance. And again, to end on a cricketing analogy, the same balance that Rohit Sharma and Ishan showed yesterday against Afghanistan.
Yeah. Brilliant
Big
game.
score, they still went.
Brilliant game. Now I understand. Most of the time I used to get annoyed. It's me, it's the same, and I'm doing the same transaction, same website. Yeah, I used a different device. Why the heck I'm getting these questions again and again? That, is it really you? But now I understand that security and customer experience, although two different aspects, but they need to dovetail into each other. They need to actually reinforce these aspects with each other.
Absolutely.
Fantastic point, Mani. Moving on a little bit into, now that we have understood the mechanics behind AI, digital payment, security, customer experience, all of these things coming together. And it's very, very critical, right? All of them need to fire at the same time. Now, let's talk about, and especially, right? Globally, yes, we keep hearing there is, different kinds of data protection laws and regulations coming around. And in fact, India has made an attempt to come out with a perspective around it. But still, in the context of India, it is one way or other slightly unregulated, right? So what are the ethical implications of this whole thing?
I think this is a fantastic point. And, again, a topic that's very close to my heart. And you could spend hours discussing this, trust me. Because today, AI is unregulated in India, right? And it's an unknown entity for a lot of people. So what is critical is, okay, let me take a step back, I'm sorry, because I think I need to explain this at a different level first and then bring it down. So when we talk about ethical behavior and AI, there are two angles to this. One is the geography that you operate in, and then the organization that you are part of, right? So the geography that you operate in is typically, the manifestation of this ecosystem is by regulation, is by what the government does, what the regulator does. For instance, in Europe, you see there's this AI Act that's on the anvil. In India, we've probably evolved in our stance and we've said yes. We are talking about responsible AI now, right? And even in the latest G20 meet, you heard India pushing for responsible usage of AI. And it shouldn't be unregulated.
Yep.
So that is going to be taken care by the government and the powers that be. Now, how do we operate as an organization? And different organizations have different approaches to this. Maybe I can borrow some from what we at MasterCard do to set a perspective. The first thing is around defining data responsibility principles. And in MasterCard, just 4 simple things that we talk about. One is the consumer owns the data. 2, the consumer controls their data. 3rd, the consumer should benefit from that data. And 4th, it's our duty to protect it, the 3. Quite simple. And this is not overseen by a separate body within MasterCard. This is embedded within the way we work. And everybody has a responsibility to ensure this happens. Now, anybody can tell you, okay, this is a great, nice statement to make, but does it actually work in practice? So the checks and balance that you were talking about, what we've done is we've linked something associated with this to everybody's compensation.
Within your organization itself?
Yeah,
Wow.
I knew I would get that reaction from you, right?
Okay.
So let me explain this to you. So about 2 years ago, MasterCard decided to link compensation, a portion of the compensation for every employee to our ESG goals. And I guess everybody knows what ESG is. But what we did is we took this one step ahead and we said data principles, data responsibility principles and responsible AI is going to be part of this ESG goal.
Wow.
And we said, so therefore, not only have we put the rules in place, the processes in place, we've also ensured that there's a counterbalance which will make people hold each other accountable to this. Right? So starting from my management trainee, right up to my CEO, the same rule applies. Very transparent about this. It's there in all our filings, all our earnings. So what this does is it allows you to operate with a sense of transparency. So that's the first thing I normally recommend other corporates and other bodies. Start thinking of your data principles. The second one is around privacy principles, right? It's all about data, guys. I mean, I think we all need to realize data is the next oil, or data is already the oil, right? Oil is probably the next data. So then, how do you ensure privacy is there or privacy is there? Again, you need guiding principles. Don't be tactical about this. Don't think of it at a transaction level. Think about it at a corporate level. And again, some of the considerations we keep in mind are typically the approach we take, the framework we use is both top-down and bottoms-up. And what do I mean by this? When I say top-down, what I'm talking about is it has buy-in from the CEO and the board. I just told you, it's attached to everybody's compensation. It's part of our ESG goals. It's part of something that we publish. It's part of our corporate objectives. It can't get bigger than that. So very clear top-down buy-in into that. The second one is bottoms-up. And what I mean by that is privacy by design is embedded into every product that we create. Now, every time a product comes up, we force the product managers to ask these questions. do we actually need this level of data from a consumer?
Oh, that is interesting. I thought everybody is hungry for
No.
data,
No.
any kind of data, doesn't matter
No.
whose data,
No.
where the
So
data is coming from.
that is why I was telling you privacy and data responsibility. It's called data minimalization. That's the word we use.
Oh,
You
fantastic.
only need as much of data as is required for that particular use case. And we keep pushing the teams to explore ways of doing away without having their data. That fuels innovation, right? And we ensure that these principles are published. So this goes through a rigorous check and balance. It goes through a rigorous review process, where if somebody requires a high level of data, he or she has to explain why that's the case. And then we have teams challenging them and telling them how they can do this without that level of data.
Wow. So very, very strong governance principles,
Absolutely.
accountability of data across the board, across the enterprise. And what I liked is, people talk about accountability, but when you link it to their comps and benefits, it really becomes serious and it really becomes,
True.
implementable, right?
True.
You can understand that. Fantastic, and I really love this perspective. Moving on to, what are they, so given all of these things are happening, right, as we speak, yeah? And from the audience perspective as well, what is next? What are the trends that you see or that keep bothering you, or you are very inquisitive about it to prepare yourself? What are those trends? Maybe one or two high-level trends to share with the audience.
Sure. Okay, so lots of trends, right? As with any new technology, multiple ways in which it can go. Let me talk to you about things that excite me today. The first one, and I guess you spoke about this yesterday, generative AI, Gen AI. Everybody is talking about it. I know you presented about this yesterday. You were telling me about this. So I think that is definitely something super exciting. Again, what form, what shape will it take? I have no idea. But immediate use cases that come to my mind, content creation, which means it's big in marketing. It's going to be big in service ops, education training, right? These are areas which require a lot of content. Therefore, Gen AI is going to be big in the immediate future. And of course, it's going to grow after that. The second one is, again, an interesting topic, something that I've worked on in the past. It's around open banking. And I'll probably have to take you back a couple of years when I was in Sri Lanka. And I used to be the country manager there. And I was in the working committee of the Central Bank of Sri Lanka. And the remit, me, a few other folks. The remit we had was to create an open banking framework for Sri Lanka.
Okay.
Right? And one thing that came out very clearly, or very stark, was that there were going to be multiple players involved in open banking. And by very definition, it means there are going to be lots of disinterventions, lots of disruptions, and lots of interventions, which mean lots of players, lots of data flowing in, which means lots of computing power required. Right? So open banking is ideal as a use case for AI. So that's going to be another big one. Now, as an extension of this, and I don't know how many of my colleagues, how many of the people in the audience are on the hardware, on the computing side, what this means is there is going to be huge demand for adjunct industries around computing. Because AI will need a lot of computing power. As people keep moving from mainframes into the cloud ready, you will see that those industries start growing. They start becoming really big because they need to start providing that. And the fourth one that I'm super excited about, and I was referring to this when I saw the gentleman from Portia talk about healthcare. Mm-hmm. I see there are going to be lots of adjacencies moving from B to C, because today when we talk payments, we are talking of end consumer. There's going to be a lot of relevance on AI on the B2B space, and let me help illustrate that. Healthcare is a vertical that I want to talk about. If you look at the US, for instance, and that's a case study I'd like to talk about, healthcare is a $1 trillion business. fraud losses is roughly around 10%, which in itself runs into trillions of dollars. So what a lot of companies, including MasterCard, of course, are doing is we've started working with healthcare providers to figure out ways and means in which we can stop this fraud. It's not extremely complex, folks, because typically what we've seen is the healthcare provider is the one who is typically paying hanky, right? He gives you fake bills, he sends it to the insurance company, and is trying to claim money. Now, with AI, you are able to detect that. You are able to create trends, you are able to create historical data, and thereby able to predict what's the likelihood of a particular transaction being fraudulent. Therefore, when a claim comes in, you are able to forecast with a large degree of confidence that it is likely to be a fraud. Therefore, that is another trend I'm going to see, which is very exciting, which is moving from B2C into B2B.
Excellent, excellent, fantastic. So, trust,
Yes.
right? And despite the madness, right? Despite the chaos, you talked about the central banking construct that is coming together with the consortiums of banks and ecosystem coming together to build these kind of frameworks so that consumers like you and me, will have the trust and will feel safe, right? Yes, everything is fine. Now, in all of these things, and given the pace at which technology is moving, right? It's very difficult to catch up to that. We as human, right? And I must bring in this human element to this conversation, right? And so far, very enriching, and thanks for sharing those anecdotes as well. Human in the mix. What's your perspective on this? With this, volumes and massive scale data, operations, almost on every single thing, there is an algorithm. It is highly automated. Of course, at the other end, it is regulated, compliance, right? And how do you see this human element evolving in this?
No, I don't think anybody can do away with humans. Let me be quite honest about this. That's, again, a personal view. Because I think the human element is required to contextualize what AI is going to throw out, right? We all talk about bias. There's a lot of conversation happening around AI bias. Because AI can only operate in a particular manner. For instance, when it comes to microfinance, what works for, let's say, somebody who's in Africa, who doesn't have exposure, is very different to what happens in the US.
Yes.
But if you use a model, he's going to say, okay, this is how it happens, this is how it happens. So how do we consciously start removing that bias? For all of this, you will need human intervention, right? What is going to happen is, it's about human beings learning how to harness the power of AI, right? Because in my mind, AI is only an enabler. It goes back to the 2000s or the 1990s, when people said, oh, computers have come, we'll all lose our jobs.
Oh, yeah. I heard
but
that.
what it just did was, and we both are from the same generation, right?
Yeah.
What it just did was, it opened out a completely new opportunity for people to master computers. And there you go. The same thing is going to apply to AI as well.
Fantastic. Mani, very, very pleasant conversations, a lot of enriching thoughts, right? And I'm sure the audience has already gotten their share of nuggets and perspectives.